Pathetic employees like you don't deserve success. The message lit up my phone screen as the roar of the crowd at Madison Square Garden, New York, thundered around me. The New York Knicks were leading the Los Angeles Lakers in the NBA Finals, and the ball had just swished through the hoop in a game-changing score. Daniel Sullivan, 45 years old, sat in the VIP section, feeling like I was at the peak of my career. I had just been fired, via text message, right in the middle of this high-stakes game. The message came from Nathan Caldwell, my boss at Apex Solutions, a Chicago-based technology consulting firm where I had served as senior strategic director for 7 years. 7 years of building relationships, securing international client contracts, and generating revenue that kept Apex's international division profitable. 7 years of missing family dinners to take calls with executives in Mexico City and Tokyo. 7 years of loyalty to a company, only to be discarded like a worthless item. I stared at the phone screen, maybe for 10 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. The crowd around me erupted as the Knicks scored again, but all sounds seemed mute. A second message appeared right after. You're fired. Clear out your desk by Monday. No phone call, no meeting, no explanation. Just Nathan's cowardly way of ending my career while I was enjoying a reward I had earned through sweat and sacrifice.
Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video.
I gripped the phone tightly, my hands trembling with anger and humiliation. This trip to the NBA Finals was a reward for signing the biggest contract in Apex's history. A 3-year deal worth $15 million with Zenith Innovations, signed 8 months earlier. Nathan had personally handed me the ticket package at our quarterly meeting, shaking my hand in front of the entire team and calling me the future of international development. Now he was texting me like a coward hiding behind a screen. The arena buzzed with energy. The squeak of sneakers on the hardwood, the faint smell of popcorn and beer in the air, but I felt only a cold emptiness. The man sitting next to me in the VIP section glanced over. He was about 55, wearing an expensive watch and carrying the calm demeanor of someone accustomed to powerful places. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice low with a sharp edge, as if he sensed something was off. I looked at him more closely, trying to keep my face neutral, but my mind was reeling. Then recognition hit like a cold wave. William Harper, CEO of Horizon Partners, Apex's biggest competitor in the international technology consulting market. We had spoken briefly at a conference in San Francisco 2 years ago, where he left an impression with his intelligence and professionalism. Horizon had been trying to poach Apex's clients for nearly a decade. "Just work," I replied, slipping the phone back into my pocket, but my voice couldn't hide the tension. William looked at me, his sharp eyes seeming to read everything in my expression. I felt a surge of adrenaline rush through me. I looked out at the court, where the crowd was still cheering as the Knicks scored another point, but memories of 7 years at Apex Solutions flooded back, like a slow-motion film reel pulling me away from the electric atmosphere of the NBA Finals. 7 years of dedication, 7 years of sacrifice, and now it had all been erased by Nathan with just 2 texts. When I joined Apex Solutions 7 years ago, the company was just a small name in the technology consulting industry, headquartered in Chicago with not a single international client. Nathan Caldwell had personally recruited me, with grand promises of company shares and a path to partnership. "We need someone like you to take Apex global," he said, his eyes gleaming with ambition. I, with experience in enterprise software implementation, saw a chance to create something big. I didn't just want to do my job well. I wanted to transform how Apex operated on the global stage. Those early days were truly tough. Apex had no overseas offices, no dedicated team, and no connections outside Chicago. I started from scratch, flying constantly to Mexico City, Tokyo, São Paulo, and dozens of other cities to meet with tech executives. I remember long nights in hotel rooms, hunched over a laptop with a cold cup of coffee, learning Spanish and Japanese to communicate directly with clients. I didn't want to be just a salesman. I wanted them to see that I understood their culture, their business operation. I spent 2 years mastering those languages, learning the proper Japanese greeting for Kinji Sato of Nippon Systems, or the friendly yet firm negotiation style for Isabella Morales of Zenith Innovations in Mexico City. The results didn't come immediately, but they spoke for themselves. In 7 years I brought in 48 major international clients, with a total contract value of $85 million. The international division, which I built from nothing, now accounted for 40% of Apex's revenue. The Zenith Innovations contract, worth $15 million, was the pinnacle of those efforts. I still remember that evening in Mexico City, when Isabella Morales shook my hand after a 6-hour meeting, saying she trusted me more than anyone else in the industry. Moments like that made me proud, made me feel that every sacrifice, missing Sophie's birthdays, evenings when Rebecca ate alone at home, was worth it. But Nathan Caldwell never truly valued that. He was the kind of leader who demanded credit for every success while shifting blame for every failure. When Nippon Systems rejected our first proposal 18 months ago, Nathan publicly blamed me in a meeting, saying I didn't understand Japanese culture. I spent 3 months working tirelessly to revise the strategy, flying to Tokyo 4 times to meet Kenji Sato, and finally secured the contract. But when reporting to the board, Nathan claimed it was his leadership that made the difference. I swallowed my frustration, thinking that as long as I kept performing, my position would be secure. Warning signs started appearing in recent months. Nathan excluded me from high-level leadership meetings, saying it wasn't necessary for me to attend. He hired his nephew, Kyle Caldwell, as Assistant Director of International Relations, without consulting me. Kyle, 28 with an MBA from a lesser-known school, didn't know a word of Spanish or Japanese and had never worked with international clients. But he was family, and that seemed enough for Nathan to place him in a role he was utterly unqualified for. I remember meeting Kyle for the first time in the office, wearing an oversized suit, bragging about strategic vision that sounded like recycled cliches from a text. Colleagues started whispering, but no one dared speak up in front of Nathan. I tried to stay professional, guiding Kyle on how to work with international clients, but he just nodded absently, then botched an email to Nippon Systems, forcing me to fly to Tokyo on short notice to apologize to Kenji Sato. 3 weeks ago, I discovered Nathan was contacting my clients directly. He called Isabella Morales and Kenji Sato, people I had built relationships with over years. When I confronted him, Nathan just smirked, saying he was streamlining communications, and that I shouldn't worry about matters above my pay grade. His words stung like a slap, but I stayed calm, thinking I couldn't be replaced. I had deep knowledge of international markets, relationships Kyle couldn't take over overnight. Rebecca, my wife, saw something was wrong early on. One evening when I came home late after cleaning up Kyle's mess, she sat beside me on the couch. "Nathan's up to something, Daniel," she said, her voice full of concern. "People like him don't bring in family unless they're planning to push someone out." I laughed, brushing off her warning. "You're overthinking it. I bring in 40% of the company's revenue. They can't replace." Rebecca shook her head, her eyes sharp as if to say I was too naive. "You have the knowledge and relationships, but Nathan doesn't care about that. He wants control." I didn't want to believe her, but her words planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Rebecca was right that Nathan was preparing to push me out. Kyle wasn't just an incompetent assistant. He was part of Nathan's plan to take over the international division I had built. Later I learned Kyle had told Nathan I was too close to international clients, prioritizing their interests over company profits. He even suggested most of my work could be handled remotely from Chicago, without my costly business trip. Nathan, with his long simmering jealousy, seemed to have bought into those claims. The trip to the NBA Finals, which I thought was a reward for the Zenith contract, now loomed in my mind as a trap. Nathan had deliberately sent me out of Chicago, ensuring I couldn't react while he and Kyle prepared to fire me. Sitting at Madison Square Garden, with Nathan's message still glowing on my phone screen, I felt my anger transform into something colder, more focused. Nathan had miscalculated. He thought firing me mid-game, right next to William Harper of Horizon Partners, would leave me powerless. But he didn't realize he had just handed me the chance to turn his mistake into a disaster for Apex. I looked at William more closely, trying to keep my face calm despite my pounding heart. At a tech conference, William had approached me after a presentation, praising how I handled a Japanese executive's question. "You've got talent, Daniel," he said then, handing me his card and hinting at opportunities with Horizon. I had declined out of loyalty to Apex, and faith in Nathan's promises. William looked at me, his sharp eyes as if seeing the chaos in my mind. He said nothing more, just nodded slightly and turned back to the game. But I could feel his attention still on me, like a seasoned chess player, waiting for the next move. When the final buzzer sounded, the crowd stood and cheered, and the Knicks hoisted the trophy. William stood, stretched, then turned to me with a faint smile. "Sorry if I'm a bit nosy," he said, his voice low and courteous, "but you look like you just got some less than pleasant news. Care to continue this conversation elsewhere? I know a great restaurant nearby." I stood and shook his hand. "Actually," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I think I just got the best news of my career. I'm Daniel Sullivan, formerly with Apex Solutions." William smiled, his handshake firm. "William Harper, Horizon Partners," he replied, "and I suspect formerly is about to become a very significant word." We left the arena, stepping out onto New York's bustling street. The restaurant William chose was near Times Square, an upscale place with dim lighting and glass walls overlooking the city. As we sat down, I pulled out my phone, opened Nathan's message, and showed it to William. He read it slowly, his eyebrow twitching slightly at the line, "Pathetic employees like you don't deserve success." He read it again, then looked up at me. "What a fascinating moment," he said, his tone both curious and sharp. "What did you do to make Nathan Caldwell this upset?" I gave a brief account of my 7 years at Apex, how I built the international division from nothing, bringing in 48 clients with $85 million in revenue. William listened, nodding slowly, as if piecing together a puzzle. "Nathan miscalculated," he said when I finished. "Horizon has been trying to expand into Latin American and Asian markets for years, but we lack someone who understands both international business culture and the U.S. You, Daniel, could be the missing piece." "I want to continue this conversation," I said, my voice steadier now. William smiled, signaling the waiter for another glass of wine. "Good," he replied. "Let's start this game." As I left the restaurant, I felt a shift inside me. The shock and pain from Nathan's message had turned into a plan. William Harper had just opened a door, and I was determined to walk through it. On the flight back to Chicago that night, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened at Madison Square Garden. But as the plane landed, I was no longer the shocked and hurt man. I was Daniel Sullivan, who built Apex Solutions' international division from nothing, and I would show Nathan how wrong he was. Monday morning, Chicago's sky was gray, the biting cold a reminder of harsh reality. Before stepping into Apex's office for the last time, I called my lawyer, Mark Grayson, to review my employment contract. I needed to ensure the non-compete clause wouldn't block me from joining Horizon Partners. After an hour of review, Mark confirmed the clause only applied to competitors in the Chicago area. Horizon, based in Boston, was outside its scope. "You're free to act, Daniel," Mark said over the phone. "They have nothing to hold you back." I walked into Apex Solutions' office, once the center of my years of dedication. The familiar atmosphere, keyboards clicking, coffee scent from the break room, cold fluorescent lights, now felt alien. Nathan was waiting in the meeting room with Kyle Caldwell and Jennifer Lawson, the HR director. "Daniel," Nathan said, his voice falsely cheerful. "How was the NBA game?" I sat across from him, keeping my face neutral. "Learned a lot," I replied evenly. Jennifer slid a stack of papers toward me, a standard severance package, including the non-compete clause and a demand to return company property. "Not generous but not illegal," Nathan said, his smile fading. "We've decided to restructure the international division under Kyle's leadership. Your services are no longer needed." Kyle sat there, smirking as if he'd won a prize. He, 28 with zero international experience, thought he could take over the relationships I'd built over 7 years. "What about my clients?" I asked, looking straight at Nathan. "They're the company's clients," he replied, his tone firm. "Kyle will handle all international relationships from now on." I signed the papers without argument, surprising Nathan. "I must say, Daniel, I thought you'd put up more of a fight," he said, his tone tinged with suspicion. "No point fighting the inevitable," I replied, standing and shaking his hand. "Good luck with the international market." I also called William Harper, and he sent an offer letter that exceeded expectations. Director of International Expansion at Horizon Partners, with a 30% salary increase, and the equity Nathan had promised, but never delivered. As I cleared my desk, Kyle watched from a distance. He even sat at my old desk, loudly discussing international strategy, with anyone who'd listen. The performance was pathetic, but I let him have his moment. Tuesday morning, the real counterattack began. I called Isabella Morales of Zenith Innovations, from my Chicago apartment. "Daniel, what's going on at Apex?" she asked as soon as she heard my voice. "I just spoke with some guy named Kyle. He knows nothing about our Lucia contract." I briefly explained my firing, and moved to Horizon Partners. "If you're not at Apex, we need to discuss our contract immediately," Isabella said firmly. I promised to send transfer documents as soon as possible. The next call was to Kenji Sato of Nippon Systems. "Daniel, I don't work with people who don't understand our contract," he said after Kyle botched a phone meeting. "Send me the paperwork to move to Horizon now." I contacted 3 other clients that week, and they all reacted the same. They trusted me, not Apex. By Thursday, Nathan was panicking. My phone buzzed constantly with 6 missed calls from him, followed by increasingly desperate voicemails. "Daniel, there's been a misunderstanding," he said in one, his voice trembling. "We need to talk now." I didn't respond. Friday morning, Zenith Innovations sent a formal letter requesting termination of their $15 million contract due to management personnel changes. Nathan showed up at my apartment that evening, his face pale and tense. "Daniel, this is ridiculous," he said, his voice angry. "You're sabotaging relationships out of spite." I stood at the door, looking him in the eye. "I'm not sabotaging anything, Nathan," I replied coldly. "I'm just not there to save you from Kyle's incompetence." Nathan left, looking like a man who'd realized he'd made an irreparable mistake. But that was just the beginning. I knew clients like Isabella and Kenji weren't just business relationships. They were partners who trusted me for my professionalism and cultural understanding. Nathan miscalculated when he thought Kyle could replace me. As I prepared to leave Chicago for Boston, I received an email from William Harper, confirming that Horizon had prepared a contract for me to start my new role. The game had begun, and Nathan didn't know he was about to lose everything. I arrived in Boston on a crisp fall morning, the cool air and cobblestone streets of the city bringing a sense of renewal. Horizon Partners' office was in a modern glass building, a far cry from the tense, politically charged atmosphere at Apex. William Harper greeted me with a firm handshake. "Daniel, we've been waiting for someone like you," he said, leading me to a meeting room where the leadership team awaited. Not everyone welcomed me immediately. Some directors at Horizon, like Andrew Klein, head of North American strategy, were skeptical. "You may have brought clients from Apex, but can you understand our market?" Andrew asked in our first meeting. I smiled, presenting a plan to expand into Latin America and Asia based on my 7 years of experience. After an hour, Andrew nodded, and I knew I'd earned their respect. While I started at Horizon, Apex Solutions descended into chaos. The Monday after I left Chicago, Isabella Morales of Zenith Innovations formally notified Apex of the cancellation of 3 contracts worth a total of. Kenji Sato of Nippon Systems demanded the return of all proprietary documents, refusing to work with Kyle Caldwell after a call where he mangled contract terms. Another company from São Paulo, in talks for a new contract, canceled a meeting citing lack of continuity in management. Nathan called me Tuesday morning, his voice almost pleading. "Daniel, what are you doing?" he shouted over the phone. "I'm working for Horizon Partners," I replied calmly. "My clients chose to follow me. You can't do this. You have a non-compete." I chuckled soft. "I checked with my lawyer. Horizon's in Boston, not Chicago. That clause doesn't apply." Silence stretched for nearly half a minute before he hung up. As Apex unraveled, I focused on building at Horizon. I reached out to Isabella Morales, explaining that Horizon had a stronger support team, and my commitment to personally manage her account. "This is good news, Daniel," Isabella said over the phone. "Horizon has a solid reputation, and I trust you." She signed the transfer contract within 3 days. Kenji Sato followed suit, sending paperwork to move a $10 million contract to Horizon. By week's end, I had confirmed the transfer of 6 major clients, bringing $50 million in revenue to Horizon. 3 other clients requested meetings to discuss transferring their accounts. William Harper called to congratulate me, his voice brimming with excitement. "You're doing what we've been trying to achieve for 3 years," he said. "Keep it up, Daniel." Sitting in my new office at Horizon Partners in Boston, looking out at the city skyline twinkling with lights, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years at Apex Solutions. Just weeks ago, Nathan Caldwell's message at Madison Square Garden had shocked and angered, but now as Apex was crumbling under Kyle Caldwell's incompetence and Nathan's miscalculations, I had turned that shock into motivation to build a new future. However, Nathan wasn't ready to give up. He and Kyle began spreading rumors, trying to pin Apex's failure on me. The rumors started circulating. An old colleague from Apex, Sarah, texted me, her tone full of concern. "Daniel, have you heard what Nathan and Kyle are saying? They're claiming you sabotaged the international division out of personal spite, that you deliberately poached clients to get revenge." I wasn't surprised. Nathan needed someone to blame for his failure, and I was the easiest target. Kyle, with his usual smugness, went further, telling a few clients I had deceived Apex to transfer contracts to Horizon. Those accusations weren't just false, they were pathetic. I stayed calm, knowing an emotional reaction would only play into Nathan's hand. Instead, I focused on my work at Horizon. Isabella Morales, after transferring her contract from Zenith Innovations to Horizon, introduced me to a company in São Paulo seeking technology consulting services. I flew to Brazil, met their CEO, and signed a new $15 million contract over 3 years. Kenji Sato of Nippon Systems also stepped up, recommending Horizon to a sister company in Osaka, opening the door to another deal. By month's end, I had secured 3 more contracts, boosting Horizon's international client revenue to over. William Harper called me into his office, shaking my hand with a satisfied smile. "Daniel, you're changing the game," he said. While I solidified my position at Horizon, Apex continued to disintegrate. Jennifer Lawson, Apex's HR director, called me one Tuesday evening, her voice resolute. "Daniel, I have something you need to see," she said. Jennifer sent me a digital file containing evidence of Nathan's misconduct. He had set up an email forwarding rule 6 months earlier, copying all my client correspondence to his account. He had also forged an email to make it look like I agreed to let Kyle take over major accounts. Furthermore, Jennifer discovered Nathan had lied to the board, claiming I planned to quit long ago to justify my fire. But most damning were documents tied to a deal to sell the international division to a Canadian firm. "Nathan told them you were the problem," Jennifer revealed, "that the division needed professional management to function better. He planned to sell it all right after pushing you out." This evidence was a fatal blow to Nathan. If the board saw it, he wouldn't just lose his job, his reputation would be ruined. Jennifer also shared that she had officially joined Horizon as an international operations manager. "I couldn't stand Apex's toxic culture anymore," she said. "Horizon is where I want to be." I felt a sense of relief knowing talented people like Jennifer were abandoning Nathan's sinking ship. Meanwhile, at Apex, things grew worse. The Canadian firm, realizing the international division had no significant clients left, began pulling out of the deal. An old colleague texted me, saying Nathan was holding daily crisis meetings, desperately trying to convince the board he still had control. Kyle, after resigning, vanished from the office, leaving behind a trail of garbled apology emails to clients he had alienated. The board, rumor had it, started questioning Nathan's competence, especially after losing 75% of international revenue in just weeks. My personal life was also stabilized. Rebecca and Sophie moved to Boston by month's end, and we bought a small house in Back Bay, with its cobblestone streets and lush trees. One evening, during family dinner, Sophie looked at me with proud eyes. "You did something amazing, didn't you, Dad?" she asked. I smiled, nodding. "I just did what I had to," I replied. But inside, I knew I had overcome a massive challenge. Rebecca squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes saying it all. We had weathered the storm together. A year later, I sat in the VIP section at Madison Square Garden, New York, watching another NBA Finals game. The crowd's cheers, the bright lights, and the arena's electric atmosphere were unchanged. But I was no longer the Daniel Sullivan of a year ago, the one fired via Nathan Caldwell's cruel text. This time I was a guest of Horizon Partners, the company that had become my new home. As the Knicks lifted the trophy, I smiled, not just for the game, but for the journey I'd traveled from the shock at this very arena, to a fulfilling new life in Boston. Horizon Partners had exceeded expectations. In a year I helped the company expand into Latin America and Asia, bringing in 14 major clients with over 100 million. We opened new offices in Miami and San Francisco, and the contract with Nippon Systems, thanks to Kenji Sato's introduction, grew into a partnership spanning 5 countries. Isabella Morales of Zenith Innovations not only maintained her contract, but became a fervent advocate, referring Horizon to other firms in Mexico City. William Harper, Horizon's CEO, treated me like a partner, not an employee. "Your success is our success," he said at a meeting, and I knew he meant it. No more corporate politics like at Apex Solutions. No more empty promises like Nathan's. My family life was more complete than ever. Rebecca and Sophie adapted to Boston, and our little Back Bay home became a place for new memories. Sophie, now 17, started dreaming of attending college in Boston, and Rebecca opened a small financial consulting office, pursuing a dream she had shelved during my hectic Apex year. One evening at dinner, Rebecca shared a story that stopped me cold. "Guess who I saw yesterday at the supermarket near our old Chicago house?" she said, her eyes twinkling. "Nathan Caldwell. He was bagging groceries at the checkout. He looked worn." I didn't feel smug, just a twinge of pity. Destroying someone's career, even if they deserved it, didn't bring lasting joy. But Nathan had brought his fate upon himself with his arrogance and lack of respect. Nathan's downfall was inevitable. 3 weeks after I left Apex, The board voted to fire him from his regional director role. Losing $87 million in international revenue, nearly the entire division I built, was reason enough to end his career. Jennifer Lawson, now Horizon's international operations manager, provided the board with evidence. Forged emails, Kyle's backdated contracts, and Nathan's secret plan to sell the international division to a Canadian firm. Those documents not only cleared my name, but exposed Nathan's scheme. Kyle, rumor had it, moved somewhere in the Midwest, carrying a reference letter no one cared about. Apex Solutions, once a force in Chicago, was now a shadow of itself, its international division dismantled and reputation in tatters. I learned that loyalty shouldn't be blind, that respect is the foundation of every relationship, and that a failure can be a springboard to greater opportunities. Nathan probably never understood that, but I did. I didn't need to thank him, but for a fleeting moment, I thought maybe I should. As the game ended, I stood, soaking in the arena's vibrant energy once more. William Harper beside me patted my shoulder. "You did well, Daniel," he said, his voice full of pride. I nodded, smiling. "Thanks for giving me the chance," I replied. Leaving the arena, stepping onto New York's bustling streets, I thought of Rebecca and Sophie waiting for me in Boston, of new contracts awaiting in Tokyo and São Paulo, of a future where I didn't just survive but truly live. Life isn't always fair, but sometimes it gives you a chance to rewrite your own story. The story of Daniel Sullivan and boss fired me via text during the NBA Finals, while I was sitting next to his competitor, reflects the harsh realities and unexpected opportunities in today's workplace where competition, loyalty, and respect play critical roles. Daniel, a senior strategic director at Apex Solutions, was brutally fired via text by his boss, Nathan Caldwell, during the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden. This betrayal, coupled with Nathan's scheme to replace Daniel with his incompetent nephew Kyle, shows that toxic corporate cultures still exist, where personal gain sometimes trumps talent and dedication. However, Daniel's ability to seize the chance meeting with William Harper, CEO of Horizon Partners, to join a company that valued him, and bring along international clients like Isabella Morales and Kenji Sato, illustrates the resilience and value of personal relationships in modern American business. Apex's collapse, with Nathan losing his job and working as a grocery bagger, underscores the consequences of disrespecting employees. A real-world lesson. In today's workplace, where technology and competition constantly shift, Daniel's story teaches us to always build and maintain relationships based on trust and professionalism, as he did with his client. When faced with injustice, like Nathan's cruel firing text, don't react with bitterness, but stay calm and seek new opportunities, as Daniel did with Horizon. Ultimately, respect and integrity, like Horizon's workplace culture, yield lasting success over selfish scheming. Be ready for surprises, like the chance encounter with William, and always be prepared to seize them to turn failure into opportunity, as Daniel did to build a fulfilling life in Boston. If you enjoyed my journey overcoming challenges at Apex Solutions and Horizon Partners, subscribe to the channel to catch more inspiring stories. Thanks for joining me, and see you in the next video.